Hello.
Hello, I can hear you.
All right, cool.
Who's Justin?
Justin, that's my friend who I've asked to
Okay.
come on with me. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want him in here?
Yeah.
Yeah, around 4:30, we got to drop off.
Okay, that's fine.
But I mean, you guys are good to go as long as you need.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got about an hour.
Cool.
Okay.
What did we
Ju-
want to talk about?
Justin, can you hear us?
I can, but I was on mute. So how's that?
Yeah, that's
Better.
good.
Cool. All right.
So what did we want to talk about?
So
Missionaries.
the topic that I wanted to talk with Elder about originally was who is Jesus according to the Bible, and how does a person be saved according to the Bible? So um that was the two topics that we were wanting to discuss.
Right. And I think we kind of talked about that. The Bible doesn't have opinions because the Bible is an inanimate object. Right?
The Bible is a book, right, that conveys information.
The
So
Bible, well, the Bible isn't even a book. The Bible is an anthology of texts. So it's not even a book.
what
But it
define
but it's words on
what
pages.
Which is a book.
Well, the Bible isn't a book. It's not a singular volume. Like the Book of Mormon is actually a book.
So
which is made up of books, right?
It's not actually. The Book of Mormon
so
has one author. That's why it's called.
so
That's what.
so
So look,
so hang on, hang on, hang on.
if I'm gonna say something, I have to finish my thought. So just hold on. Like the Book of Mormon is actually a book. Thus the title, The Book of Mormon. It's not an anthology text like the Bible. The Bible doesn't have a singular author or editor. It
I
is
would
a compilation. It has a compilation of documents.
the Bible does have a singular author, it's God.
Right, but God didn't write the Bible. Human beings did.
Sure he did. Sure he did.
I'm sorry?
Sure he wrote it.
No, he didn't.
Yeah. So like if I chop down a tree with an axe, would you say the axe chopped down the tree or I did?
No, because that's not what's going on here.
The axe was used to chop down the tree.
No, the analogy would be
Put
like
pen paper.
right. Paul wrote the letter to the Galatians. Did Paul write it or did the pen? Well, Paul
So
wrote
it's
Well,
God. These are the words from God. That's what they are.
I know you believe that, but that's a theological position. That's not a factual reality.
So do you believe the Bible?
So that statement doesn't make any sense because believe the Bible. The Bible is not a person. It's not conveying an opinion about something that I have to believe it. It is a collection of ancient documents. Do
well,
I
It,
do I
it
I
is
think I think we're I think we're
truth
with
from
all due respect, guys. I think we're
do I
getting off
agree?
topic.
Do I
So
agree?
what I
No.
originally wanted
We're
to
not
talk
getting.
about
This is the topic. So
was
because you wanted to address.
who is Jesus according to the Bible, and how does a person be saved according to the Bible?
So according to the Bible, well, that presupposes Bible has an opinion on something throughout. Well, it
it
doesn't. So for example, I could say, who is
something.
Jesus of Nazareth according to the Old Testament?
Yes.
Well,
That
the Old Testament doesn't mention Jesus of Nazareth at all. So he's nobody because he's not mentioned anywhere in the text, right?
I would
So using
like
just the Hebrew Bible, how do we obtain salvation and who is Jesus?
Dude, I think we broke him.
And the answer is that you can't answer that question because he's not mentioned in those
no,
texts.
you certainly can answer the question of
well,
how do we obtain salvation?
Salvation is of the Jews.
And you
Yeah, if
can
you're a Jew.
glean a lot of truth from the Old Testament about Jesus Christ.
But you can't, because he's not mentioned anywhere in the Hebrew Bible.
Oh, he's mentioned all throughout the Old Testament.
Okay, all right. Okay, so Justin, where's the passage that mentions Jesus of Nazareth?
All right, so let's just start with just as an example, go to Isaiah 53.
Which doesn't mention Jesus of Nazareth.
Let's just
Well, let's go there.
I'm familiar with Isaiah 53, and I know that it doesn't mention Jesus of Nazareth at any point in the text.
so you
Well, what about Acts 8?
Acts
Where
8's
the
not
whole-
found in the Hebrew Bible.
so
Hold on,
Travis,
hold on.
you believe anything?
I believe in lots of things. But I mostly try to ground myself in reality. Don't you?
How do you obtain what reality is?
Well, typically the way that most people do, I use my senses.
So you only base your beliefs and understanding of the world around you based on your senses only?
Well, that's what you do.
No, not entirely. So I have logic and reason, which are beyond the senses, touch,
Right,
see,
but you
smell,
use
right?
your senses to obtain
I
the information upon which you rely.
to the things that I see and the things that I smell, the things that I hear. I can use logic and reason, which you can't see or touch or any of those things. And I can apply that to build myself an understanding of the world around me. And I think it works quite well.
That's fine. I'm glad you do that. That's great.
I don't know why you would say you just simply use your senses, because
No, the first I didn't say I just use my senses. I said I try to ground myself in reality. You asked me how I obtain reality, and I use primarily my senses.
But in any case, let's turn to Isaiah chapter 53. It says, who hath believed
Why? Because it doesn't mention Jesus of Nazareth anywhere in Isaiah 53.
This whole thing is about Jesus Christ.
I know, but where does it say that it's about Jesus Christ?
Verse 2, for he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of a dry ground. He hath no form nor comeliness. And when we shall see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. He is despised and rejected of men.
Referring to the nation of Israel.
Do you want to let me read or no?
No, I'm just saying that in context, it's referring to the nation of Israel.
It says he.
Right, it's referring to the servant, the suffering servant, which is the nation of Israel. That's provided in the prior chapter's context.
How do you define
Because Isaiah 53 is not a chapter, it's actually a continuation of a pericope. So you've got Isaiah 50 through 54, which are one comprehensive understanding of a concept that's being conveyed by its author. And at no point in any of those texts is Jesus of Nazareth mentioned. The idea that it refers to Jesus is you interpreting it that way.
Very obvious for anyone
Where is it?
Old and the New Testament.
Except it's not, because
you're redefining what he is. It says, who hath believed our report, and to whom is the arm
no,
of
what I'm not engaging in theological presuppositions as to what a text means. Instead, I'm reading for what it says.
I'm reading what it says. It says
you're not, because it doesn't. Right. Where is he defined as Jesus of Nazareth?
If you defined he as it is, it's a singular individual term. A pronoun describing a single individual male. That's what
except the text is not written in English, it's written in Hebrew. So the problem that you're having.
Speak Hebrew?
So wait, I just want to let you know that you're cutting out. So as you talk, it actually takes a second for it to start where I can hear it. So I just want to let you know we're not talking over each other. It's just your connection is doing something weird. Like you start talking and then it takes a while for me to hear it. So
okay. So can you read Hebrew and speak Hebrew fluently?
I don't. That's why I rely on scholars who can.
So I rely on a God who knows English, and he gave me a book in English for me to read in English.
Except he didn't, because the texts were originally written in ancient Hebrew.
You know. How do you know God didn't give us this book in English?
Because we have ancient copies of the document and its contents written in Hebrew.
We have thousands of copies, and they all agree with what I have right in front of me.
Okay, that is a completely nonsensical statement, and let me kind of unpack it for you.
You don't
That
even read.
they,
How do you know what it says?
because I rely on people that do. Do you read
You don't.
Hebrew?
So you're
Wait, do you
trusting
read Hebrew? Can you read
you're
Hebrew?
who are liars.
Right,
So I
and
mean,
you're trusting the English interpreter of
authority.
that passage. Right, you're relying
You have
on a Hebrew scholar. Right,
so this is just your opinion.
Justin, that's what I'm saying. You're doing the same thing. I'm applying the same standard to both of us. I'm not being
No,
unfair.
Bible. It is a higher standard. It is a higher place of authority than just the opinion of a man.
Justin, that's what you're relying on, though. So what the problem is I'm saying I'm relying on scholars, people who actually can read the ancient languages to tell me what they mean,
You're
right?
relying on
But that's
scholars,
exactly
because
what you're
the greatest
doing.
that ever existed in language gave us this book.
What are you saying? What did you say?
You are relying on some scholars because the greatest scholars that ever lived with regards to language translated the King James Bible.
Let's see that again.
Because the greatest scholars that ever lived with regards to language translated the King James Bible.
There were 47 men that saw the work of the translation through from beginning to end, whose ability and knowledge and understanding in language far surpasses that of anybody alive in the last 250 years easily.
King James of England, he wanted a translation of the Bible that could be used in the churches. And so he authorized a committee of mainly Oxford and Cambridge scholars in England. He commissioned them to translate the Bible. In the early 17th century, if you read Greek, you read it like the newspaper. These were highly, highly skilled linguists. They spent 7 years and they translated it. But the thing about it is, what they basically did is they took Tyndale's translation and tried to improve it in places. The King James Bible's words, 92% of them are taken from Tyndale.
So the thing is I don't think you understand where the King James Bible came from. It was largely interpreted by one person, and
No,
then
not even at all.
okay, Justin, before you say something that's factually untrue, you ought to probably just Google an article. Yeah, Google an article about the compilation.
Listen, every single verse in the King James Bible has been scrutinized at least 14 times by groups of translators.
That doesn't even make any sense. That it was scrutinized by at least 14 assemblies or groups. Who cares?
14 different times.
That doesn't change the fact that the King James Bible is replete with errors in translation and content.
Give me one error in translation.
1 John 5, 7, and 8.
Okay, so you have something Greek that defies that?
The 1 John 5, 7, and 8 is actually an added passage. It was added later after the composition of the Greek text.
Could you read it in Greek if you had it?
No, I would rely on a scholar who can, just like you do.
Well, then what you have is what some guy told you.
Justin, that's what you have. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand. You have the same thing.
But what I have came from men who had a skill and ability in language that far exceeds.
And what I know and understand about the text comes from men who have a skill and ability that far exceeds yours and mine.
How many languages can the guy that gave you this idea speak fluently?
It's not guy, it's thousands of scholars.
Okay, name them.
Written hundreds of books.
Name them.
Why? What would that do?
Because what it is you're saying, I'm saying something that's not true. You don't even know the 47 men that saw the translation work. One of them, just Sir Lancelot Andrews. You can look this up. This is history. Sir Lancelot Andrews could speak fluently in over 30 different languages.
So he only needed to have spoken two.
He could learn a language fluently in a month. A level
right. So yeah, it sounds like you're putting your trust in the arm of flesh and the knowledge of human beings to convey information, and you're trusting in ancient people who were smart. Good for you. That's great.
I've got a God who gave me the book in English, but you don't.
What you've got is an appeal to really smart guys who lived a long time ago that you value.
It doesn't give us a ground by which we can talk on.
What you've got a bunch of smart guys that you rely on to correctly interpret text for you that you don't read. That's what you've got. Just like
I've got a perfect book in English. That's what I've
got. You don't have a perfect book. You have a composition of texts translated.
First John chapter 5, verse 7 and 8. If you had a Greek text,
Are
that
you
said
not?
it was-
You're not aware. You're not aware of the
Even-
problem with the Johannine comma.
you couldn't even read it if you had a Greek text that told you First John
No,
5,
I
7.
right.
No.
I could use a lexicon and I could translate the text myself. I just don't do that because I rely on scholars who have done the academic work and I read their scholarly writings. And
So-
there's nothing inappropriate about doing that. That's what
Oh, but-
all
oh,
you're
but-
doing is saying I have a perfect English text from a
I do.
perfect book that God wrote.
I
Those
asked
are
you to-
all just presuppositions.
John 5, 7, because you want to tell me it's not there, but it's
First John
there.
5, 7, and 8. Okay,
I have-
now do you
I've
have
witnessed-
do you have any other translations of the Bible? Or do you
Do
just
I-
are you a King James only person?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. So you have you ever read any other translations of the Bible?
I do. I don't read them cover to cover like I read my King James.
Okay. Do you have an NRSV or an ESV or
Could pull one up online, I suppose.
okay, pull up an NRSV and look up the same passage in an NRSV. And if
So
you've got
sure,
if you've got one that has commentary, that's even better because then it'll explain to you what the problem is.
Who's going to explain that to me, though?
Scholars, people who can read the languages
Scholars
and have researched
don't-
and studied the text.
But listen, what the scholar's position is that you're telling me. The scholar's position is don't believe the Bible. Those verses shouldn't be there.
Right.
So it sounds like there's a heart problem.
No, it's the problem. No,
The heart problem is there's a guy telling you that you should believe what God says, and then there's a guy telling you to not believe.
no. It's not a heart problem. There's a problem with the fact that you believe that what you have is quote what God said, which what you have is you have somebody's English translations based on mostly Latin texts where they translated from Latin into
Oh.
English.
That's
Okay.
not. We have, like I said, there are literally thousands of copies of manuscripts.
Right,
Greek,
and the oldest,
there's
original, best, and most complete
there's
right.
Syriac, there's the Didache, there's the Cushetto. There are so many different manuscripts that are out there that all agree.
There's the Didache.
I'm sorry, did you say the Didache?
Yes, in
What
the
are you
King.
referring to? What
Not
is the
only that,
Didache?
These are extant books.
No, what is the Didache?
It gives you Bible.
Wait, what is Justin? What is the Didache?
The Didache is a text, an ancient text.
What is it? What is it? What is it? What is the Didache? You can Google it while we're sitting here. Because you mentioned it, I figured you already knew what it was.
I've read all the different aspects of it, but listen, it matches.
You have not read all the different aspects of it?
If you had it, you couldn't read it anyway.
No, I can read a translation of it.
Okay.
And then like you, I would have to trust that the translation was correct. Just like you're
Okay.
doing with the King James Bible,
Which is correct.
which you're doing so uncritically. You're just believing it because it's the King James Bible.
Show me an error in the King James Bible.
I was just trying to, right? So NRSV, 1 John chapter 5, verse 7 and 8, and compare that in the NRSV to the King James Bible. Compare the verses. Actually, if you go through, there's several of them. But it removes, I think, roughly 15 to 20 verses that were later additions that aren't in the oldest and best manuscripts of the Greek.
You're absolutely
Okay. I'm sure that Bruce Metzger had no idea what he was doing when he compiled the scholars to translate the NRSV. One of the most preeminent New Testament scholars of the 20th century just probably was clueless.
Yeah.
Yep. He was an
right.
evangelical, Bible-believing Christian his whole life, but he probably didn't have any idea what he was doing.
No.
You're right.
Apparently,
Yep.
if he's going to say,
if he's taking the oldest, best, most complete copies of the Greek manuscripts
how
that
do
we
you know
have,
it's the
studying
how do you-
them and determining that the things that are found
How
in
do you know
the
it-
King James Bible don't compare with the oldest, best, most reliable manuscripts that we have, And
Those
then
are
he
all
goes and he produces a
old.
translation that's better. Well, surely he doesn't know what he's doing. You're right.
Yeah, how do you say they have the
Makes
best
perfect
man?
sense.
How do you get that? It's purely a subjective term.
Right. Yeah. I mean, certainly. Yeah. So if we have a small little fragmentary piece of crap
So,
and then we have a full big
off of-
document, I'm sure that the small little fragment gives us more information than the big one.
Are you talking about a manuscript they got out of a garbage can?
No, I'm talking about like
Atticus. That's
P52.
what scholars would call the oldest and best manuscripts. But let's read
Codex
first.
Sinaiticus and Codex Vaticanus. Yes, those are
So,
the oldest and best, most complete manuscripts in the Greek.
The NRSV, we have 1 John 5:7. There are three that testify, verse 8. The Spirit and the water and the blood, and these three agree.
Right.
Now
read it in the KJV.
5:7 in the King James says, "For there are three that bear record in heaven, the Father, the Word, and the Holy Ghost, and these three are one." Verse 8, "And there are three that bear witness in earth, the Spirit and the water and the blood, and these three agree in one."
Okay, so which of those is correct? The NRSV or the King James Bible?
So I would tell you it's very clear the King James Bible.
Right, and you'd be wrong.
I would be absolutely correct.
No, you should probably research what's called the Johannine comma.
Do you have to say? You're going to say the scholars that you like to believe.
Yeah, the Com Johanneum is the reference in 1 John 5:7 that is in the King James Version of the Bible. That is not in the first two editions of Erasmus, that says there are three that bear witness in heaven, the Father, the Word, the Spirit, these three are one. I am not, one of the wonderful things about a committee translation, which is what New American Standard is, the King James was, etc., is that if you do have any particularities of an individual translator, since it has to go through a committee, the committee helps, I think, to balance those things out. That's why, personally, I never use translations that are done by a single individual, simply because there's just too much danger of your own personal bias there. And when you have a committee there. And so I do not have any evidence and have never made the assertion that there's any type of Unitarian bias in the King James translation. There is in some modern translations, there's no question about that. But I think what's very important in regards to 1 John 5:7 is the early church never used that text as a proof text of the doctrine of the Trinity. There are people who summarized the belief by words similar to that, but the doctrine of the Trinity is in no way, shape, or form dependent upon that. And my biggest concern is this, is that if we include the Com Johanneum in the New Testament, we are saying that the Greek manuscript tradition can become completely corrupted for 1,500 years and lose vitally important doctrinal material. No one who believes in a majority text theory should ever support the Com Johanneum, because the majority text doesn't contain it either. It is a much later edition. It is found only in Latin manuscripts and only in very late 14th century and beyond Greek manuscripts. And if we include it, what we're saying is the text of the New Testament can be thoroughly corrupted.
Listen, it's very clear there is historical witness to what
There actually is no the Johannine comma is a late addition. It's a recent addition to the text, and
that is not even remotely correct. It's not even correct.
It is.
There are lots of witnesses to 1 John 5 verse 7, which tells us
there's not
where you get
it's not. You don't get the doctrine of the Trinity from any passage in the Bible, let alone 1 John 5, 7, and 8. But it's an attempt to include and incorporate a proof text into the documents when it didn't exist previously. That's what it is.
But you still don't have a means by which you can show me an error in the King James. You said this is an error.
That's an error, yeah.
Historical witness to it. You're saying there's not. We could be here all day, right? But what is an actual error in the Bible? Can you show me one?
The thing is that the problem with it is error in the Bible is more complicated than that. There are historical errors in the biblical text, for example. Things that it mentions, or anachronisms, for example, like the biblical text in Genesis have Abraham raising camels at a time when camels were not domesticated. That's a historical error. That's an anachronism. There are
Where is that in the Bible?
there are inconsistencies between the Gospels with respect to the birthplace of Jesus being in Bethlehem or Nazareth. There's a host of
That NRSV, but that's not in the King James. I'm asking, give me one error in King James Bible.
I don't have to give you one error. Why would I need to give you an error?
But your claim was that the King James Bible has errors.
And I just pointed one out to you.
No, all you did is said that here's what my version says, here's what your version says.
It's not my version. I didn't write the NRSV.
The version you're choosing to use, and the version
I'm not choosing to use it. Almost every modern translation of the Bible omits 1 John 5, 7, and 8.
Listen, you're just being difficult because there are lots of people that
I'm not being difficult, Justin. I'm stating
you haven't talked to everyone out there in the world.
Let's do it this way. Justin,
so silly,
why only the King James Bible?
What?
Why only the King James Bible?
It's without error.
Why?
It's without error.
How do you know that?
Well, every place I've ever studied it, every place I've ever checked it, anytime I ask somebody to give me an error, they can never show me an error in the Bible. If it is true, every place I can check it, why would I not then believe it in all places? And of course, not only that, but it has been true to me, true to my heart, true as I read it. God works in my life through this book. And
your feelings. Yeah, you trust other people and your feelings.
No, I trust them.
I know that's what you just said. I trust people and my feelings.
If I do what the book says, it's always the right way to do things.
Like what? What's an example of that?
All sorts of examples. I mean, about
give me one. Just give me one.
Okay, how about being in church, right? The Bible says in 1 Corinthians chapter 16.
Is this more where it tells you to have an experience and you did the thing and you had the experience and you believe that you had the experience and so now you believe what it says?
It says 1 Corinthians chapter 16 verse 1. Now concerning the collection for the saints, as I have given order to the churches of Galatia, even so do ye. Upon the first day of the week, let every one of you lay him in store as God hath prospered him, that there be no gatherings when I come. So it is in order to Christians to go to church on the first day of the week and to give as God hath prospered them. And that has worked I have found that
How has it worked in your life?
I have escaped trouble and difficulty and hardship because instead of being out in the world doing things that are harmful, hurtful, or that will come back and be harmful or hurtful to me in my life, here I am in the house of God, singing God's praise, spending time doing things that are good in the eyes of God.
So because of your feelings?
Where did you get feelings?
Because that's all that is. Everything you've just described is just how you feel about stuff.
No.
Yes.
No, because going to church is what.
So you're saying if you didn't go to church, you would do bad in the world?
I have done bad in the world. I'm
sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that. But so if you don't go to church, you do bad in the world.
I'm not saying I would. I said I used to, but you're putting words in my mouth.
That sounds like a feelings problem. So if you don't go to church, you do bad, then I think you should go to church if going to church prevents you from doing bad things.
And
so good for you.
Not only for my personal life, but I've seen it with lots of other people. Lots of people when they fall out of church to do things that are good and are not right.
I've seen lots of people who think the same way I do the same things I do. That's not proof of anything, though.
If that's how you find it.
Well, that's actually what it is. You're saying a bunch of people who think the way I do have the same experiences I have because they do the same things I do. So that's evidence that what we're doing is right.
No, what you're saying isn't even right at all. But I want to ask you this: what do you even believe, and what is the
I'm
purpose?
sorry. How is that not even right at all?
What do you believe, and what is the purpose for you to even sit here? What you do is play semantics with words. You don't even define
No,
anything.
my purpose in sitting here was to speak to Michael. He
Mhm.
invited you. So I don't know what you're here for.
Well, I was originally supposed to talk to Elder Humphrey and his companion, and they invited you.
Right, but they
Correct.
did that before the conversation discussed. I was going to join the conversation before we're here, and we're on my Zoom. So I was the one that was hosting this discussion. You invited him without any knowledge that you were going to do that. If he wants to be here, I have no problem with it.
Well, they did the same thing with you.
No, they didn't, Michael.
How so?
You and I had a very long back and forth on Messenger about the
Yeah,
fact
I
that you
know.
and I were going to talk, and you agreed to talk to me in Messenger before we started the conversation. And then Justin shows up. That's an alteration in what we decided to before. I don't have any problem with him being here. My purpose was to talk to you about whatever you want to talk about. But Justin is now usurping the conversation with.
You can go ahead and achieve your purpose then.
My purpose is to talk to Michael. I don't really care if you want to talk to me instead. I guess Michael. I guess you're passing to Justin. Let's talk to Justin instead. Justin, what did you want to talk about?
Travis.
Well, let's talk to Justin. Justin, Justin, what did you want to talk about? Did you have questions?
Travis, what exactly do you believe personally? As far when I say what do you believe, I don't mean like
that's like asking me,
like how
Michael,
I don't mean like
Michael,
how do you I don't
Michael,
mean like how do you
tell me
personally
everything.
dress?
Tell me everything you know. Do you have a specific question you could ask that I can answer rather than what do you believe?
What is your personal
I believe lots
faith
of things.
in? What is your personal faith in? Is it in the Book of Mormon?
My faith is in Jesus Christ.
Okay, your faith is in Jesus Christ. Okay.
Right.
So is it the Jesus of the Book of Mormon?
Yes.
Okay. So you had mentioned earlier that there was a problem in the King James Bible about the birthplace of Jesus Christ, correct?
Well, there's a discrepancy between the four Gospels.
A discrepancy. Okay.
Yeah. Historically, Jesus was probably not born in Bethlehem. He's probably born in Nazareth.
Well, do you believe that wholeheartedly?
No, I really don't care one way or the other. It just appears to be a discrepancy, and I tend to agree with the conclusion that he was born in Nazareth and not Bethlehem.
So why does it not matter where he's born?
Why does it matter?
Well, I mean, what if the Bible or the Book of Mormon said that Jesus was born in Alaska, but he actually wasn't? That was what if that was an untrue statement? Would it still be okay to believe in something that wasn't true?
I would just find out whether or not there was any facts to support that, and if there wasn't, I would disregard that.
Sure, and if you found out that it wasn't
so if it says
true,
so, for example,
you would disregard it.
Let's say historically we prove that Jesus was born in Nazareth and not Bethlehem. What does that mean? Does that mean he didn't exist? Does that mean he wasn't a real person? Does that mean he really didn't do anything else? Does that affect anything?
What that would do, if you could prove it historically.
Yeah, let's say we could.
Which I don't believe you could. I believe he's
of course you don't, because you don't have any idea what I would be talking about. So.
Well, how do you know I wouldn't?
Because we've had discussions before, and you don't seem very well informed on these issues. But I'm not. It doesn't really matter. The point being is if we find out, let's say hypothetically, we verify that Jesus was born in Nazareth and not Bethlehem. So what?
So, is your faith in this Book of Mormon though?
No, it's in Jesus Christ.
It's in Jesus Christ of the Book of Mormon though, right?
Right. Because Jesus Christ is presented the same way in the Book of Mormon as he is in the biblical text.
The Book of Mormon says that he was born in a different place than the Bible says.
No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does. It
No,
says
it
he was
doesn't.
born. It says he was born in Jerusalem. I'll read
Right.
it to you.
No, it's in Alma chapter 7, and I'm aware of what you're talking about. Do you want me to answer your question, or do you want to just read it to me because I already know the verse?
You already
I would
know the
say-
verse?
Yeah, I know what you're
Interested-
talking about.
Okay, so Jerusalem and Bethlehem aren't the same place. They're
Well,
geographically different.
Jerusalem, right? That's correct, but not according to the authors of the Book of Mormon in context. No, they wouldn't be.
So let me ask you this: if you were taking a
Right. If you want me to explain, look,
geography class,
if
if
you
you were
want me to
taking a
explain,
geography class,
Michael, if you want me
would
to
you
explain
be?
it to you, if you want me to explain it to you, it's a long explanation. Do you want to hear the explanation? Do you? Because I'll
Sure,
explain it to you if you want me to.
Explain
Okay.
it. Sure, go ahead.
All right.
Go for it.
So when was Alma chapter 7 written?
Well, I know that it was the Book of Mormon itself was given in about the 1830s.
No, but
Correct.
that's not the point. So the point is that when was the text? When does the text indicate that Alma chapter 7 was written? Have you read the Book of Mormon?
I've read some of the Book of Mormon. Yeah,
How much of the Book of Mormon is about 530 pages? How much of it have you read?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
5
I've read
pages?
no.
10 pages?
I've read some of the Doctrine and Covenants, Pearl Ray Price.
Well, that's not the Book of Mormon. I'm
Faith.
asking about those. I'm asking about the Book of Mormon specifically. How much of the Book of Mormon do you think you've read?
I honestly don't know. I've read some here and there. throughout the
5%,
years.
10%, 2%, 1%?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
Right. So effectively, here's the problem with it. Your argument, if you're making an argument about the birthplace of Jesus in the Book of Mormon, the biggest problem that you're having is you've never read the text. And so basically, you're not making an argument based on an understanding of the text, because the text very clearly explains why there is that difference.
Because it's
And
a
having-
different
having re-
Jesus, correct?
No, it's not, because it's a different Jesus.
Did Jesus ever come to America?
Because
According to the
Charles,
Book of Mormon, he did. What? I'm sorry?
he asked you to explain why it says he's born in Jerusalem.
I asked him, for example, because here's the problem, Justin. He has not even read Alma up through chapter 7. And if he had, the explanation is a lot shorter. But he hasn't, right? Have you ever read the Book of Mormon?
Can you explain it?
I'm going to. Have you ever read the Book of Mormon?
You've not to this
Have
point.
you ever read the Book of Mormon?
You've hurled insults. I would like you to
It's not insulting. It's not insulting to say that somebody who hasn't read something is ignorant of the thing. That's not an insult. That's just a fact.
Would you be willing to or no?
Yeah, as soon as you answer my question of have you ever read the Book of Mormon?
Question. I want you to answer his question.
Have you ever read the Book of Mormon, Justin?
I would like you to answer his question first.
So the answer is no. The reason is that the Book of Mormon begins with a prophet named Lehi who departs from Jerusalem, and he does that 600 years prior to the birth of Christ. The Book of Alma is written approximately 150 years before the birth of Christ. And it's written from the perspective of people who live on a different continent. So how would those people 150 years prior, at leaving Jerusalem at a time when Jerusalem and the surrounding area was destroyed by the Assyrians and the Babylonians, how would they have an understanding of whether or not Bethlehem even exists, let alone that Jesus would be born there? Right?
Well, is Alma a true prophet of God?
The problem with that is that's to say that prophets know everything. They don't. If they knew everything, then Jesus's name would be found somewhere in the Hebrew Bible, because it's not. Was Moses a true prophet because he never mentioned Jesus of Nazareth?
Well,
he never does. Okay,
well, he's a true prophet.
Right, he doesn't know everything. Abraham never mentions Jesus of Nazareth, never reveals him to anybody.
Knowing everything's not the issue.
That's what I'm asking.
That's what I'm saying. Is he a true prophet of God? That's all I'm asking.
Yes.
Well, how do you know? How do you know he's a true prophet?
I don't know. The same way you don't know whether or not Moses even existed. You just believe he did.
Okay, but but let me pause for a moment, because if you're saying it's because they didn't know that Bethlehem existed, that they wrote.
No. I haven't finished.
Go ahead.
So, like I said, Justin, I can just talk to you, and we can just talk because apparently that's what you want to do.
I'm just waiting for the explanation.
Okay. Right. So at a time when the text, so it would be consistent with the text for the author to have a lack of understanding about whether or not Bethlehem's even a place. Also, there's a problem within the biblical text with respect to the birthplace of Jesus, because Mark and John don't mention his birthplace. According to the Gospels of Mark and John, he wasn't born in Bethlehem. He was from Nazareth. And there's a very clear passage in John chapter 7 where it indicates that the Jews are disputing whether or not Jesus could be the Messiah because he was not born in Bethlehem. That's the indication and understanding of the book of John.
What
But then
verse?
you have
but hold on.
Wait, no. What? I just want to know what verse. That's all I want to know.
It's in John chapter 7. I don't recall the exact verse.
What does that have to do with?
I haven't completed my explanation, so we're getting sidetracked because
correct birthplace according to the Book of Mormon.
Because it has to do with whether or not there was any prophecy about him being born in Bethlehem at all. And if there was no prophecy about him being born in Bethlehem at all, people who were not in the ancient world, not in the old world, wouldn't have had an understanding of his birthplace being in Bethlehem. All they would know is he would be a Jew born in the land of the Jews. That would be the understanding that they would have. So it would be correct historically for the prophet Alma to say he'll be born in the land Jerusalem, the land of our fathers, where we're from. He doesn't know any specifics about the city or where that means. But that's actually the truth. That's actually the case with respect to the author of John and Mark. They also don't understand that there's any biblical prophecy of him being born in Bethlehem. However, the authors of Luke and Matthew do seem to understand that text. And the oldest texts we have of the New Testament are written by Paul. Paul never mentions that Jesus was born in Bethlehem. In fact, in Acts chapter 22, when he recounting again for the second time his experience on the road to Damascus, what happens is he sees Jesus, who announces himself as Jesus of Nazareth. So Jesus would have had, or Paul would have had no understanding that Jesus was born in Bethlehem. There's a dispute at the time of John as to whether or not Jesus was born in Bethlehem. And John is our last gospel, which means the understanding that Jesus was from Bethlehem is not historical. So why would a prophet in the New World, be writing 150 years before Jesus, have any understanding about his birthplace other than he would be born somewhere where we came from? Right?
Are you done with your explanation?
I'm done. Yes.
You said that there's no historical evidence of Jesus that he was going to be born in Bethlehem. Is that correct? Am I understanding you? Am I understanding you correct?
There's a dispute as to his birthplace based on an understanding of perhaps a prophecy in Micah. Some people believe the Messiah would come from the land, from the city of David, which is Bethlehem. But other Jews understood the text differently, which is why there's the dispute in John 7.
So okay, so Micah 5:2 says, "But thou Bethlehem Ephrathah, though thou be little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of thee shall he come forth unto me, that is, to be ruler in Israel, whose goings forth have been from of old, from everlasting." Okay. So
yeah, I'm aware of Micah chapter 5, verse 2.
I know. I just said that.
Thank you for reading it. I had forgotten what it exactly says, but thank you. Now what?
then you said Mark, correct?
Mark actually cites to a prophecy at the end of Matthew actually cites to a prophecy at the end of chapter 2 that indicates that Jesus would be born in Nazareth. It says that he would be a Nazarene. So apparently there's some prophecy somewhere that says that Jesus would be from Nazareth. But Matthew tends to cite to various prophecies, put them together, and then try to make them both have fulfillment. He does that in the form of where Jesus goes and finds the colt and a foal, and basically Jesus is astride two animals in the text, which would make no sense. I mean, Jesus is basically doing the splits across two animals in Matthew, but it's because Matthew is trying to take prophecies, combine them together, and fulfill them all specifically and literally. So what he did is he took what he thought was a prophecy in Micah, which is a later text. So Matthew is a later text than Paul and Mark. And so a later text is adding this birth narrative. But if you compare the birth narratives between Matthew and Luke, they're inconsistent with one another.
Well, at the end of Matthew, what you're referring to, it says, and he came and dwelt in a city called Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by the prophets.
Yeah,
He
and
shall be
where's
called
that?
a
Where's that
Nazarene.
prophecy? And where's that prophecy?
Well, it says it was spoken by the prophets. It doesn't say it was written by the prophets.
Okay, which prophet, and how would the author of Matthew have heard it?
So I think you're getting sidetracked because
I'm not. I'm trying to ask him a specific question about a statement he just made. It's not a sidetrack. It's not
prophecy-
sidetrack for somebody to make a statement that
No,
makes no
no, but
sense,
listen,
and for me to ask them why they believe
explain.
the statement.
Micah 5 verse 2 says he's born, right?
Who is he?
The Messiah
Where does it say that?
would be born. The
Where
one
does
was
it say that?
Israel, whose goings forth are from everlasting, that he would be born in Bethlehem, right? So just
who is
example,
he?
hold on. I was born in New York, but if you ask me where am I from, I'd say I'm from Florida. I've been in Florida since I was a kid, right?
Okay.
So I'm from Florida. I've been here.
That
many
doesn't resolve the historical problem.
State. And so the same is true of Jesus Christ. He was born.
No, it's not. That argument doesn't resolve
Because-
the historical problem and the discrepancy between the texts.
Where's
Because there's
this-
the text is more complicated with respect to the discrepancy
Where-
than what you just.
But where's the discrepancy in the scripture? Because he was born in Bethlehem before
Okay, where does Mark say Jesus was born?
he doesn't actually do
Right.
that. Because,
Where does Mark say he lives and he's raised?
But hold on. So here's what I would tell you. I am of the belief that God gave us 4 gospel records for a reason. And what is in those 4 gospels is for a reason. What is not in those 4 gospels is for a reason.
I know, but wait, Justin, just real quick. I believe God did this. I think God did it for a reason. I think what he omitted or
and I give you my
he did it for a reason, right?
Mhm.
Why do you believe that?
Okay, so if we consider in the Old Testament pictures, there is just going to give you a couple examples. There were 4 pillars that held up the veil that the priest had to pass through to get into the holy place. There was the one river in the Garden of Eden that when it went out, it split into 4 heads. We've got, and this is all picture, and it would take a little time to run it all, but I'm not going to run all those scriptures for you. Ezekiel, you have those 4 creatures with the 4 faces, right? One of them is an ox, one of them is an eagle, one of them is a man, one of them is a lion. And I believe all of those things are pointing to what we see in the 4 gospels. We have the book of Matthew, the theme, if you will, the primary focus, if you will, is to present to you Jesus Christ in his role as King of the Jews, which is what the promised Messiah would be. He would be the King of the Jews. However, it's not just that. So we go to Mark and we read about the servant of God. And you can read about that Isaiah 42, many other places, right? So that's the role of Jesus Christ presented in the book of Mark. You go to the book of Luke, that's presenting Jesus Christ as the perfect man. And you get into the book of John, it's presenting Jesus Christ as God. And one of those proofs, right, I would say, right, or as you look at it, something that can give you this understanding, I suppose. Matthew gives you a genealogy, goes back to David and Abraham. Because if you're going to be a king of the Jews, you need to be a child of Abraham, and you need to be a son.
Which he wouldn't have been according to that genealogy.
You need to be a son of David.
Except he wouldn't be according to that genealogy because the genealogy of Joseph, and Joseph wasn't his father.
Aha!
I don't think you. Yeah, you see, everything you just said effectively. I'm not to be disrespectful. But everything you just said is theological dribble. It's just what you've just done is you've taken a bunch of concepts from various passages and you've cobbled them together into a theology. That's fine. You can do that.
You go into the book of Luke, you have a genealogy, but it goes all the way back to Adam, right? So that's
but it's also the genealogy of Joseph, and it's in conflict with the genealogy in Matthew.
It doesn't matter whose side it is.
The genealogy in Matthew. It doesn't matter whose side it is.
I think Luke is actually the genealogy.
I'm sorry. Wait. It does matter. It does matter because you have a genealogy of Joseph, and Joseph was not the father of Jesus.
Of course he was.
Right,
matters.
because he was virgin born.
Right. Way to go. Point for you. Good gold star for you, Michael.
Yeah,
but the point is that you're citing to a genealogy to make a theological point, and it's not the genealogy of Jesus.
There is a throne right that is there, right? So then you have Mark has no genealogy. Mark doesn't do that. If he's a servant, right, who would consider the genealogy of a servant?
Look, Justin, please.
Hold on. I'm giving points.
No, wait, because what you're giving me is you're giving me anything grounded in reality. That's the problem. What you're giving me is Justin interprets a wide Justin interprets a wide variety of random passages in a certain way to point to some conclusion that Justin has decided. That's called eisegesis.
Hold on. He was born in Bethlehem. The Bible clearly states that, right? Now, his father...
No. The Bible doesn't clearly state that. The Gospels of Matthew and Luke state that. I'm running out of time, and you're rambling about something that makes no sense.
Okay,
and I'd like to move on to something that's productive. Because like I said, Michael, thank you for inviting Justin, because he's just going to usurp your time.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't you, Travis, explain to me what the gospel is? What is the good news according to how you have been taught or believe or come to understand? Would you please explain to me what the gospel is?
It's 1 Corinthians 15, verses 1 through 8.
Okay. Now in 2 Corinthians 11, where Paul talks about there are people who are going to come and they're going to preach another Jesus or receive another spirit and these things, would you agree that there are different Jesuses in the world who people perceive Jesus to be?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, how do you know that you have the right Jesus versus, a different Jesus? How do you know you have the right one?
How do you know?
Because the Jesus that I believe in is in the Bible.
Well, the Jesus I believe in is in the Bible too.
Do you believe Jesus is the spirit brother? Excuse me, the spirit brother of Lucifer?
No.
Do you believe Jesus was a polygamist?
No.
Okay, well, explain to me who
and even if I did, where in the Bible does it say he was not those things?
It doesn't say that he was the spirit brother of Satan or Lucifer.
Right? But it doesn't. Well, it actually does.
It doesn't say that in the Bible.
Yeah, it actually does indicate that because it indicates that he was part of the council of gods, found in Psalm 82 and Deuteronomy 32.
Well, John 1 and Genesis 3 and Colossians 1 would say that Jesus Christ is the creator and he created everything, and that includes Satan because Satan's a created being.
Except that he's not, because creatio ex nihilo is not found in the biblical text either.
How do you know that?
Because I know when things aren't in a text.
To ask, is creation out of nothing a biblical idea? This won't be a burning question for everyone. Some people really don't care whether or not the idea is scriptural, while other people will think, well, of course it is. It's obvious. What's there to talk about? But however, as a matter of fact, more than a few biblical scholars would deny the claim that creatio ex nihilo is a teaching that has biblical support. And given that Scripture is foundational and pivotal in any Christian thought, we'll need then to briefly explore this question. And I'm going to begin by making a concession. It is true that you won't find a text in the Bible that says that God created the world from nothing.
Well, how do you
That's
know?
like
what
that's
you-
like
how do
saying
you, how do you
that's
know
like
what
saying,
you're reading is
how do I
correct?
know? How do I know I don't have two noses? Well, because I don't.
How do you know the people that you read are correct though?
Because they're more competent than you are, for sure.
It says very clearly in the day that thou wast created, talking about Lucifer.
Yeah, but created doesn't mean creatio ex nihilo, which is a more complicated theological
So
discussion
when
than
the
I'm
same
willing to
word
have
is
with you
used,
two.
Say that.
so when the same exact word is used in Genesis 1, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. You're saying that
Right.
word doesn't mean the same thing as that?
Hey everybody, just a reminder that the doctrine of creation ex nihilo is not found anywhere in the Bible. The academic consensus is that it is a creation of 2nd century CE Christianity that arose within debates between Christians and Gnostics and other Greco-Roman thinkers. Additionally, Genesis 1:1 is not best translated in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, but as a temporal clause, when God began to create the heavens and the earth. And then verse 2 describes the circumstances that obtained at that time.
It means organized or formed, because that's what's being indicated in Genesis chapter 2. So Genesis chapter 2 actually explains the formation and organizing of existing material, which is how the ancient Israelites would have understood creation. They would have, like, for example, when somebody created these earbuds, but they didn't create them out of nothing. They created them out of existing material.
Well, that's
how
made.
ancient Israel.
That would be made.
Right, which is the word that's rendered created actually means made or organized or formed. It means, so there's a word bara, which means to make in the way that God can, but it has reference to the idea that God can separate and divide the earth, water, mountains, but he doesn't make them out of nothing. That's not a concept found in the Hebrew biblical text.
Are you speaking in Genesis 1 or 2?
Both.
So you're saying God didn't create everything?
No, look at Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, right? In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. What do you think that means?
That he created the heaven and the earth, that he
And what's the
created
heaven?
time,
And what's the heaven?
that he created time,
Wait,
space, and matter, and they
right,
all came into existence at once.
Right, and that's a really bad argument. And so that's an exegetical argument, ignoring the actual content of the document.
So in the beginning, that's time, right?
No, in the beginning, it just means at the start of something.
So that
doesn't
would
mean
be
he
time.
created time. No, it wouldn't be the beginning of time. It would just mean at the start of a specific event.
So that would
And
be
remember, the author of the biblical text is talking about their earth and their world, not all things in existence. So they're saying at the beginning of this earth, which
How do you
this
know
earth
that?
had a
which
beginning.
would be time, correct?
Because that would be the presupposition of the and worldview of the audience for these texts.
Do you know the person that wrote the original text?
See, that's the thing, Justin, is effectively you're making a really dismissive argument that's actually undercuts your own position. So here, for example,
your statements on what the person wrote it.
No. So what we can do is we can do a historical analysis of the peoples and their specific beliefs using other documents outside the biblical text. Wait, but here's the problem. If your argument is my understanding of the text is because I don't know who wrote them, and I don't know that person specifically, that's a problem that you're having actually more so, because you believe only the King James Bible is correct. And so the problem that you're having is you're believing an English translation of the documents created thousands of years after they were originally written is the way we should understand ancient documents and understandings. But see, you don't know.
The words are matter.
I'm sorry?
If the words are right, what does it matter?
If the words are right, what does it matter?
When they were written.
It matters because when they were written would determine how the words are understood by the people to whom they were written.
Okay, when were they written originally? Who wrote them, and to whom did they write them?
Probably in the 8th century BC is when the biblical texts were first began their authorship. Some people believe they were older than that.
This is all guess. You have no idea how you would even know that.
Yeah, we do have a way to know that because we have history. We have other historical records. But if you're saying we can't know anything, I guess we can't know anything.
No. What historical record then? Okay, that's good. What historical record would you use to show who wrote the original Hebrew text and to whom did they write it?
Well, they use what's called paleography in order to analyze the language, the linguistic composition of an ancient document. They can date the text. They can actually use historically date the actual document
and to whom it was written.
I'm sorry.
So historically, you still don't know who wrote it and to whom it was written.
You're right. They're right that we don't know who wrote most of the biblical text. We have no idea.
So
that's a good. Right, yeah. But you believe Moses wrote the 5 books of Moses, right?
Mindset.
Justin, you believe Moses wrote the 5 books of Moses, don't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Right, but you just said.
But if you don't
wait. You just said we can't know who wrote them.
According to you. According
to me.
The person who wrote it originally had a particular mindset. You don't know who wrote it.
Gosh. So you believe Moses wrote these texts?
I believe God gave them to Moses.
Justin, you believe Moses wrote the 5 books of Moses, don't you? Oh, absolutely.
No, you believe Moses produced these documents.
Oh, no. God gave them to Moses.
What?
Justin, you believe Moses wrote the 5 books of Moses, don't you? Oh, absolutely.
He out of the sky.
So if you want to know, God came down to a place called Mount Sinai. He actually wrote with his own finger on tables of stone and gave those to Moses.
He wrote the 5 books of Moses on tables of stone with his finger.
How much was all written there?
Right. But irrespective of that, let's go with your claim and say that God actually wrote the document. Who was the audience?
Moses and the people.
Right. Who are ancient Israelites.
Okay.
Okay. Sure. So would he when he's writing to ancient Israelites, would he do so from a 21st century Western context? Or would he do it according to what they understand?
God made the earth. He made the earth, all of it.
No.
It's not their little that they know. Or if God says there was a flood.
Genesis chapter 1 verse 1 says, Genesis chapter 1 verse 1
a local that killed a few
Genesis
people.
Chapter
worldwide that killed everybody but 8 people.
Genesis chapter 1 verse 1 only indicates that in the beginning God formed the land and the sky. That's all it's saying. It's not talking about the universe. Because they don't have any understanding of the universe. According to the biblical text, the earth is flat.
God doesn't?
Look, Justin, if you believe God literally wrote the Bible, I really can't help you with anything.
He told Job
completely factually. Job is a story. It's not an actual historical document. It's an it's an allegory.
So you don't believe any of it?
No, I don't believe. I believe Job is a story. That's what I believe.
But
because Job actually is a story.
Job said that the earth hangeth upon nothing. How do you know that?
So?
If he didn't have understanding of the heavens and the universe, how did he know that the earth is suspended out in space with nothing holding it up?
Because that was their worldview. That's actually what they believe. They believe that it's sitting out there, and that above the earth there is a dome of water on top of the earth, which is how the flood happened. Because if you'll read Genesis, God opened up the windows of heaven and water poured in because there was a dome, a firmament that covers the flat earth, and there is underneath it, there is nothing. They believed in an underworld that was infinite, and the earth is on top of nothing. That's what they believe. Right, yes, right, because
did-
the underworld is underneath the earth. That's their
Is
worldview.
that something or is that nothing?
What?
Is that something or is that nothing?
Is there nothing underneath a flat earth? Yes, that's what they believe. There was
you
nothing underneath it.
Flat?
What?
Do you believe the earth is flat?
No, but the authors of the Bible did.
How do you know that? Did they say that?
Yes.
Where?
It's, oh my gosh. Look, you
Hard
literally
time-
have just
hard-
read the King James
Bible is
Bible.
very clear.
You read the King James Bible and
God
think it's
told Job-
very clear. You
Listen,
think an
listen.
ancient text, you
God
think a
told
document,
Job-
you believe a document written in ancient languages from an ancient historical context is clear because you have an English copy of it. That's just absurd to think that. And that you believe that that it's against reality. That's not even real. It is not real that you
Why do you-
believe God. Look, you believe that the biblical texts are clear, even though they're ancient documents translated into your language, and you just think I can just read them and
Clear.
understand them.
So
Yes.
so you believe
They're
that?
not.
So do you believe
Michael,
that?
Michael, I'm sorry that you invited your friend Justin, and
Well,
that he's
do you-
actually. I'm sorry you did.